The Clithian colony ship drifted silently in the empty stretch of space, its hull scarred and battered from a collision with a meteor cluster days earlier. Lights flickered weakly along its corridors, and the faint hum of the life support systems was a fragile reminder that the beings aboard were still alive. To the Galactic Alliance, this ship was a failure, a wasted resource, a vessel belonging to a species that had long been dismissed as weak and inefficient. They had no value, they said, nothing to salvage, nothing worth saving. On the bridge, Vera, a young Clithian with eyes that reflected the color of her planet's twin moons, pressed her hand against the cracked view panel. Beyond the glass stretched the infinite black of space, dotted with distant stars. Her species had always been small and overlooked, their skills subtle and hard to notice. Yet she could sense patterns, vibrations, even life in the cold vacuum beyond their ship. The other Clithians did not understand her, and she often felt alone even among her own kind. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, though her words barely rose above a whisper. Her older brother, Jerk, adjusted the failing control panel next to her. "They won't," he said quietly, his tone not cruel but resigned. "They called us useless, they left us, that's the truth." She had heard stories of other species, others who had been abandoned and still survived. She could feel it in her chest. There was still a chance, even if no one else could see it. Outside, the stars continued to stretch in endless black. The fleet had already left the sector, moving on to more promising opportunities, leaving the Clithians to die. Their engines barely worked, and their communications array was damaged beyond repair. No one in the galaxy cared that they were struggling. The Alliance had made its judgment, and they had moved on. Vera's hand slid to a small console, a device that recorded the sounds of their world, the voices of her people, the laughter and cries that had once filled the colony's ship. She played back a fragment, the soft hum of a Clithian child's song. It was faint, barely audible, but it reminded her of who she was. She was more than the galaxy said she was. Jerk sighed and rubbed his eyes, tired from monitoring failing systems. "We need to conserve power," he said. "If the life support fails, then there is nothing to sing about." She did not want to believe that their story had ended in this empty, cold place. Far across the sector, in the human vessel Ardent Horizon, Commander Elias Kane adjusted the controls of his bridge, watching a sector map scroll before him. Humans were explorers, rescuers by nature, or at least Kane had always believed so. He had spent decades navigating the outer reaches of space, following weak distress signals, and often going where others feared to tread. It was a habit that made him unpopular among his peers, who saw protocol as absolute. Kane saw protocol as a guideline, not a law. A faint distress signal flickered across his console, weak but distinct. Most of his officers would have ignored it, labeling it garbage signal or interference. Kane leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the readout. It was coming from the outer edge of the sector, near the coordinates of the abandoned Clithian colony ship. "Commander," one of his junior officers said cautiously, "this is likely another false alarm. The sector's been cleared for months. No colonies are supposed to be out there." Kane's crew moved quickly but efficiently, preparing rescue gear, medical supplies, and communications equipment. Kane himself stared at the sector ahead, feeling the pulse of the signal as if it were a heartbeat. On the Clithian ship, systems were failing faster than usual. Life support modules sputtered, and temperature regulators struggled to maintain even a semblance of comfort. Jerk moved from one terminal to another, trying to keep their small group alive. Around them, faint lights from the corridors revealed Clithians crouched or sitting silently, too afraid to move, too weak to act. Vera ran her hands along the walls, feeling the vibrations of the ship as if it were alive. She had always known their species was underestimated. Humans, she had heard, were strong, relentless, and unpredictable. She hoped beyond hope that one of them would come. And then in the distance, a light appeared, bright, sudden, and steady. It was not the flash of a meteor or the flicker of a failing panel. It was intentional. A ship was approaching, moving carefully through the debris field around their colony vessel. Vera pressed her hands to the panel. "They're coming," she whispered. Jerk's eyes widened, disbelief mingling with cautious hope. "No, it can't be. The humans wouldn't bother with us." Kane was the first to step through the airlock, his boots clanging softly against the metal of the Clithian deck. The Clithians recoiled, unsure what to make of the tall, imposing human in front of them. Kane did not raise a weapon. He extended his hand slowly, a gesture that needed no translation. "We're here to help," he said calmly. Vera's eyes shone. She took a tentative step forward. You mean it?" Others reacted to vibrations in the hull, sensing movement or pressure changes. These were subtle, unnoticed talents, but Kane's trained eyes recognized them immediately. Hours passed as the humans stabilized the ship and prepared to transfer the Clithians to the ardent horizon. Vera stayed close to Kane, curious and cautious at the same time. She had never seen a being so strong, yet so compassionate. She wondered if all humans were like him, but she quickly realized that Kane's empathy was rare, something extraordinary. During the transfer, a malfunction caused a secondary breach in one of the ship's compartments. Panic rose among the Clithians, their fear nearly overwhelming them. Kane remained calm, giving orders in a clear, steady voice. "Stay low, stay together, we've got you, move." They were a team now. Once aboard the Ardent Horizon, the Clithians were given quarters with proper life support, food replicators, and medical attention. Kane spoke to them slowly, using gestures, recordings, and repeated phrases until basic communication was established. "You are safe now," he said. "No one will harm you here. We will take care of you." The concept was new: safety, care, protection. They had not known it in a long time. Her small hands touched Kane's arm in a gesture of gratitude she could not yet verbalize. Later, Kane entered his quarters, exhausted but satisfied. He pulled up a holographic readout of the Clithians' biological and psychological data. They were weak, yes, but not useless. Every test hinted at hidden potential: intuition beyond machines, subtle energy sensitivity, and problem-solving instincts that no standard algorithm could measure. He leaned back, a smile forming despite his fatigue. "The galaxy thinks you're nothing," he murmured. "But I see more than that. You're not useless, you're remarkable. And I intend to prove it." As the ship moved deeper into human-controlled space, the distant echoes of abandonment began to fade. The Clithians were alive, and with Kane guiding them, perhaps they could finally discover their true potential. Even in the cold, infinite darkness of space, a spark had been lit. A spark that could one day become a blaze, capable of changing how the galaxy saw them forever. And Vera, small but determined, whispered to herself, "We will not be forgotten, we will survive, and one day they will see." The Clithians had never seen a ship like the Ardent Horizon. Its corridors were wide, clean, and filled with a gentle hum that seemed alive in itself. Lights glimmered softly on the walls, and panels displayed information with calm clarity. For Vera, the young Clithian girl, every corner of the ship felt like a new world. She ran her small hands along the smooth metal walls, marveling at the strange symbols and displays. Jerk walked beside her, his steps careful. He had learned over the years that humans moved with precision and purpose, their every action deliberate. Unlike the Clithians, who often hesitated, waiting for the universe to act first, humans shaped their surroundings with confidence. Jerk could feel the difference. Commander Kane led the group through the main deck, explaining in simple words what each room did. "This is the medical bay," he said, gesturing to rows of equipment. "If anyone is hurt, this is where we fix it." Kane noticed subtle signs of trauma among the Clithians: hunched shoulders, wide eyes, and a hesitancy to speak. Many of them had not seen compassion in years. The Galactic Alliance had abandoned them completely, leaving a deep mark on their spirits. Kane knew he could not fix everything at once. Trust would take time, patience would be required, but he was not deterred. He had seen the potential in these creatures, even when the galaxy had refused to. Over the next hours, the humans worked to stabilize the Clithians' conditions. Oxygen levels were regulated, and their food rations were replenished. The Ardent Horizon's advanced life support systems compensated for what their colony ship had lost, creating a safe environment. Even the weakest Clithians began to feel the change. Vera wandered to a small observation deck, staring at the endless stars streaking past as the ship accelerated through the sector. She had never imagined that she would survive, let alone ride in a human ship. Her mind raced with questions. Why had Kane chosen to help them? Humans were known to be selfish and cruel. But this one had risked his crew to save the Clithians, something no one else had done. Jerk joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We have to be careful," he said softly. "Not every human will be like him." "Really saw us?" Their language was complex, filled with subtle inflections that humans struggled to reproduce. But there were patterns, and Kane had a talent for seeing them. He began recording their attempts, analyzing the sounds, movements, and expressions, looking for a way to connect. By the next cycle, a small breakthrough occurred. Vera had learned to respond to simple words, understanding food, safe, and follow. She mimicked Kane's gestures when he pointed to objects, slowly building a bridge of understanding. Kane's patience impressed even his own crew. Many had doubted the value of rescuing the Clithians. "They are weak," some had said. "It's a waste of resources." But Kane had ignored them. "Strength is not always obvious," he had replied. "Sometimes it is hidden, waiting to be discovered." He knew that showing fear would only worsen the situation. "Everyone stay low," he commanded. "Hold onto something, trust the ship." The humans worked alongside them, steadying the Clithians and reinforcing their confidence. Kane moved from one group to another, his voice calm, his presence reassuring. Slowly, panic subsided, replaced with cautious trust. After the asteroid field, Kane took a moment to speak with Vera. "You did well," he said. "You helped others when you could have been scared." They learned simple tasks, like cleaning their quarters, preparing basic food, and operating minor systems. Each small success built their confidence. Even Jerk began to smile more often, his usual skepticism giving way to cautious hope. Kane noticed subtle signs of extraordinary abilities among the Clithians. Some could sense energy fluctuations in the ship, predicting when systems might fail. Others had a remarkable aptitude for navigating complex corridors or repairing minor mechanical issues without guidance. These were small hints, but they suggested that the Clithians were far from useless. Vera, in particular, displayed remarkable problem-solving skills. She figured out ways to organize supplies more efficiently and even suggested minor adjustments to the ship's environmental controls. Kane watched her in amazement. The galaxy had overlooked her species, but here was proof that they were capable of much more than anyone imagined. One evening, as the ship traveled through a quiet sector of space, Vera and Kane stood on the observation deck, watching a nebula swirl in vibrant colors outside. "Do you think they will ever forgive us for being left behind?" Vera asked. Kane shook his head. "Forgiveness isn't the point. Survival is. You're alive now, and that's what matters. The galaxy may judge you, but you have the chance to prove them wrong." The humans began to teach the Clithians more advanced skills, adapted to their unique abilities. Simple engineering exercises, spatial reasoning puzzles, and energy calibration tasks became part of their daily routine. The Clithians were eager to learn, their curiosity now matched by the humans' guidance. During one exercise, Vera discovered she could sense minor energy disturbances in the ship's systems before the monitors detected them. She alerted Kane, who verified her observations. This small incident caused a ripple of excitement among the Clithians. If they could do things humans could not, perhaps they had real value after all. The crew began to notice a change in the Clithians. They were no longer cowering or silent. They moved with purpose, spoke when spoken to, and even offered suggestions. Kane encouraged this behavior, fostering a sense of self-worth. He understood that confidence, once sparked, could grow rapidly. One night, Vera sat alone on the observation deck, reflecting on the journey so far. She remembered the cold, empty corridors of the colony ship, the fear that had gripped her, and the despair of being abandoned. And now, here she was aboard a human ship, surrounded by beings who cared for her survival. It felt impossible, yet undeniably real. She thought about the galaxy and how quickly it had dismissed her species. They had called the Clithians useless, left them to die, and yet here they were, alive, learning, growing. Perhaps Kane was right. Survival was the first step toward proving their worth. The next day, a minor crisis tested their new skills. A small fire broke out in the lower decks due to a faulty conduit. Panic flared among the Clithians, but this time they acted differently. Vera and Jerk led others to safety, while a few Clithians who had learned the ship's layout helped contain the fire until human crew members arrived. Kane observed from the bridge, pride swelling in his chest. These creatures, once deemed useless, had acted with intelligence, courage, and coordination. They had saved themselves, not just relied on humans to do it for them. After the fire was extinguished, Vera sat with Kane in the observation deck, exhausted but elated. We did it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kane smiled. "Yes, and this is just the beginning." The Ardent Horizon continued its journey toward human-controlled space, but the transformation aboard the ship was just beginning. Kane knew that once the Clithians understood their own abilities fully, they would surpass even his expectations. And for Vera, the spark of hope had grown into a steady flame. She no longer felt like a child abandoned in the void. She felt like a part of something greater, capable of shaping her own destiny, and perhaps proving to the galaxy that no species is ever truly useless. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, a vast canvas of possibilities. And for the first time in her life, Vera believed that the Clithians had a future worth fighting for. The days aboard the ardent horizon grew longer and busier for the Clithians. Under Kane's guidance, they were learning not only to survive, but also to understand their own abilities. Each exercise, each lesson, brought small victories that fueled confidence. What had once been labeled useless now showed sparks of untapped potential, and Kane made it his mission to cultivate those sparks into something extraordinary. Vera was among the most eager. She practiced navigation exercises, learning to chart courses through simulated asteroid fields. At first, she relied heavily on the ship's instruments, watching readouts and following human instructions. But slowly, she discovered she could sense subtle changes in gravity and momentum, noticing shifts before the instruments could detect them. Her eyes would narrow and her small hands would press against controls instinctively, correcting course almost before the readouts changed. Kane watched in silent awe. "Good," he said quietly during one session. "You're not just following the ship, you're feeling it. That's a skill few humans have, and you're mastering it naturally." Kane encouraged him, noting that the Clithians' natural intuition for energy and patterns made them excellent at technical tasks once they were taught the basics. Other Clithians were slower to adapt. Some were hesitant, still afraid of failure or of being abandoned again. Kane worked with them patiently, never scolding, only guiding. He paired those who struggled with more confident Clithians like Vera, allowing the group to support one another. Slowly, bonds formed, and the air of despair that had hung over the group began to lift. One morning, Kane called the Clithians to the training deck, a large space designed for practical exercises in zero gravity. "Today," he said, "we're going to test what you've learned. Not as a punishment, but as a challenge. You need to trust yourselves and each other." The first exercise was simple in concept, but complex in execution. Kane had created a series of obstacles in zero gravity, designed to simulate debris in space, malfunctioning ship sections, and emergencies. The Clithians were to navigate the course while completing specific tasks, repairing conduits, adjusting environmental controls, and moving injured crew dummies to safe zones. Vera took a deep breath and floated into the course. She felt the pull of the ship's artificial gravity, the subtle shifts of momentum, and instinctively used them to move smoothly through the obstacles. She guided a small group of Clithians, demonstrating how to anticipate changes and communicate silently with gestures and signals. Jerk followed, assisting the slower participants, offering instructions and encouragement. Kane observed from above, noting every movement. "They're learning faster than expected," he muttered to himself. The Clithians' natural sensitivity to patterns and energy made them excel in ways no human might have predicted. Suddenly, a simulated power surge occurred, cutting the lights and creating a stressful scenario. Panic rose among the Clithians, but Kane remained calm. "Remember your training," he shouted. "Use your instincts, trust yourselves." She guided her team to repair the faulty lines using hand signals and coordinated movements. Jerk helped stabilize a section of the course, ensuring the dummies were moved safely. Within minutes, the emergency was resolved. When the lights returned, Kane clapped his hands. "Excellent," he said, pride evident in his voice. "You adapted under pressure, that's what survival is about. Not avoiding danger, but handling it." Kane introduced puzzles that required spatial reasoning and teamwork. A complex navigation task simulated a damaged spacecraft that needed rerouting through a nebula with unstable energy fields. The Clithians had to coordinate movements, anticipate environmental changes, and communicate silently to succeed. Vera excelled again, sensing the shifts in the energy fields before the instruments registered them. She guided others with quiet confidence, and Jerk offered precise calculations that corrected minor errors. Together, the Clithians completed the course faster than Kane anticipated. "Remarkable," Kane said when the exercise concluded. "You are learning to trust yourselves and each other. That is the foundation of strength." Slowly, the Clithians were becoming a team, an unusual, underestimated team, but one capable of extraordinary results. As days passed, Kane introduced more advanced tasks. He taught them the basics of human technology, tactical maneuvers, and environmental adaptation. Vera absorbed every lesson eagerly, her confidence soaring. She began suggesting improvements to routines, demonstrating creativity that Kane had not expected. Her natural talents, once overlooked by the galaxy, were now visible and impactful. Jerk, too, found a place. His analytical mind allowed him to understand ship mechanics better than most humans. He began assisting Kane with minor repairs and troubleshooting, often spotting issues before the sensors could detect them. Kane encouraged him, remarking that observation and intuition were as valuable as strength or speed. One day, while working on environmental controls, Vera noticed a subtle vibration in the ship's hull, a resonance that indicated a minor crack in a conduit. She pointed it out to Kane, who immediately verified her observation. "You saw that before the sensors?" he asked, astonished. Vera nodded. "I just felt it." Some were skeptical at first, believing Kane had overestimated them. But day by day, observation after observation, the crew recognized the truth. These Clithians, once abandoned and dismissed, were capable of learning, adapting, and even excelling in ways no one had expected. One evening, Kane gathered the Clithians in the observation deck. Stars streaked past as the ship moved through hyperspace. "You have come far," he said, his voice steady. "The galaxy called you useless. They left you to die, but here you have learned, adapted, and shown potential that no one recognized. This is only the beginning. There is more for you to do, more to learn, and more to prove. Not to me, but to yourselves." But I think Kane is right. This is just the beginning. We are stronger than they thought. Kane's crew prepared to intervene, but he turned to the Clithians. "You've trained for challenges," he said. "Now it's time to act. You will guide me and my team. Together we can save them." She led a group of Clithians to monitor the shuttle's movements, using their instincts to predict its path and adjust the ship's shields accordingly. Jerk calculated vectors to avoid collisions, while Kane coordinated the effort from the bridge. The Clithians' unique abilities made the difference. Their sensitivity to energy patterns allowed them to anticipate the shuttle's movements, avoiding hazards that the ship's sensors could not yet process. With careful guidance, the shuttle was safely captured and brought aboard the Ardent Horizon. Cheers erupted from the human crew, but Kane's focus remained on the Clithians. "You see what you are capable of?" he asked. "Your instincts, your teamwork, your courage, these are strengths that no one expected. You are not useless, you are extraordinary." That night, as Vera lay in her quarters, she thought about the journey so far. She had feared death, feared abandonment, and feared that her species would never be respected. Now she understood that survival was only the first step. The next step was to grow, to learn, and to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. And with Kane's guidance, she knew they would. The Ardent Horizon traveled deeper into uncharted space, carrying the Clithians who were once abandoned and dismissed as useless. The training had prepared them for survival, but Kane knew that true growth would only come when they faced challenges beyond simulations. He had been monitoring reports of a conflict on a nearby neutral planet, a situation where diplomacy and strategic skill were both required. The planet, Yaltria 7, was inhabited by multiple alien factions, all vying for control of its rare mineral resources. The local governing council had requested assistance from the Galactic Alliance, but tensions ran high. Kane saw an opportunity, not just to intervene in a dispute, but to allow the Clithians to test their skills in a real-world scenario. Vera and Jerk observed the planet from the observation deck. Vera's small hands pressed against the glass as she watched the swirling clouds and jagged mountains below. She had heard stories of wars and conflicts, but seeing it firsthand was different. The planet looked beautiful and dangerous at the same time, and she could feel the tension radiating from it. "Are we really going to help them?" she asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. Kane nodded. "Yes, but more importantly, you're going to learn how to act when the stakes are high. This is your chance to prove what you've learned. Stay calm, trust yourselves, and work together." Many stumbled, some fell, but Kane's instructions and their training kept them moving forward. Once the crew disembarked, the Clithians were introduced to local alien leaders. The aliens, tall and angular with scales shimmering in muted colors, eyed the Clithians skeptically. "They are fragile," one of the council members whispered to another. "Why would humans bring such creatures to this negotiation?" Kane stepped forward, his calm demeanor asserting authority, but he relied on the Clithians to act as well. Vera moved first, using her instinctive awareness to notice weak points in the terrain and pathways where the mercenaries' movements could be anticipated. She guided a group of Clithians to strategic positions, signaling silently and coordinating their actions with precise hand gestures they had practiced countless times aboard the ardent horizon. Jerk worked on monitoring environmental hazards, analyzing terrain and energy fluctuations that the mercenaries might not notice. With his calculations, he advised Kane on safe movement and trap avoidance. The Clithians' unique abilities became clear: subtle energy sensing, rapid pattern recognition, and the ability to anticipate dangers before they became threats. The humans and Clithians coordinated seamlessly. Kane directed the operation, but it was clear that the Clithians were no longer passive or weak. They acted decisively, and the mercenaries were forced to retreat without a single casualty among the council members. For the first time, the alien leaders looked at the Clithians with respect rather than pity. Kane noticed it, and a small smile crossed his face. "You see," he said quietly to Vera, "strength isn't always obvious. You've proven it today." She had always doubted herself, but now she understood. Their species had been abandoned, called useless, yet here they were, capable of influencing the outcome of a dangerous situation. The council invited Kane and the Clithians to a formal meeting. The Clithians, still cautious but emboldened by their recent success, participated actively. They observed negotiations, offered insights, and even suggested creative solutions to avoid future conflicts. Their unique perspective, unbiased, intuitive, and focused on collaboration rather than domination, impressed the council. Jerk spoke up during a discussion about resource distribution. Using his logical mind and observations of the terrain, he proposed a method to allocate the planet's minerals fairly, preventing disputes and potential sabotage. The council members exchanged glances, some nodding in approval. It was unprecedented, Clithians contributing meaningfully to interstellar diplomacy. Vera noticed that some of the other humans were skeptical. They whispered doubts about the Clithians' usefulness, still holding on to the old prejudices. She caught Kane's eye, and he gave her a small nod of reassurance. She realized then that part of their challenge was not only surviving physically, but also proving their value in the eyes of others who had doubted them. The situation escalated when a rival faction attempted a surprise attack. They deployed drones and energy-based weapons to disrupt the council. Panic threatened to return, but Kane and the Clithians had anticipated the possibility. Vera signaled a group to flank the drones, while others manipulated the terrain to provide cover for council members. Her movements were fluid, precise, and instinctive. She could sense the vibrations of the weapons and predict their trajectories, warning humans in time to adjust. Jerk coordinated communication between groups, ensuring everyone was aware of the drones' positions. The Clithians worked together as one cohesive unit, their training and natural abilities combining to create a force that even the humans had not expected. Kane directed the operation from the center, his voice calm and authoritative. "Focus on coordination, trust your instincts. You are stronger together than anyone can predict." They had faced a real threat and emerged victorious. The Clithians had proven themselves, not through brute strength, but through intelligence, cooperation, and courage. The council formally recognized the Clithians' contributions. Kane spoke to the assembly, emphasizing the importance of perspective. "The galaxy often judges based on appearances or past performance," he said. "But every species has potential. These Clithians were abandoned and dismissed, yet they have shown that even the smallest or weakest can be extraordinary with guidance and opportunity." Their species had been cast aside, left to die, but now they had a voice, and that voice mattered. Back aboard the Ardent Horizon, Kane debriefed the crew and the Clithians. "Today was not just a victory for the Council," he said. "It was a victory for you. You faced danger, you worked together, and you succeeded. You've proven to yourselves, and the galaxy, that no one should be dismissed as useless." Jerk approached Kane privately. "I never imagined we could do so much so soon," he admitted. "Your trust, it changed everything." She thought about the mercenaries, the Council, and the humans who had believed in them. She realized that their species' journey was far from over. They had survived abandonment, learned new skills, and proven their worth, but the galaxy was vast, and challenges would continue to come. Yet for the first time, Vera felt hope that the Clithians could thrive. They were no longer weak, no longer dismissed, no longer abandoned. Humanity had given them the chance to rise, and they had seized it. The stars streaked past the viewport as the ship accelerated through space. Kane stood beside Vera, watching her expression. "You're ready for what comes next," he said quietly. Vera nodded. "I think we're ready to show the galaxy who we really are." She thought of her people, scattered, frightened, and abandoned, and felt a fierce determination. They would rise, they would survive, and they would make their mark on the galaxy no matter how long it took. The Clithians had learned to trust themselves, to use their unique abilities, and to work as a team. They had faced real danger, made critical decisions, and saved lives. For the first time in generations, they were seen not as failures or burdens, but as equals capable of greatness. And as the ardent horizon carried them deeper into space, Vera knew one thing for certain: the galaxy had underestimated them for too long. That underestimation would soon end. The ardent horizon moved steadily through the endless stretch of space, carrying the Clithians toward human-controlled territory. The mission to Yaltria 7 had been a turning point. For the first time, the galaxy had witnessed the Clithians' true potential. Their skills, once dismissed as useless, had made the difference in a real conflict. Yet Kane knew the journey was far from over. Recognition was one thing, but full acceptance into the galactic community required continued growth, courage, and resilience. Vera and Jerk walked together along the ship's observation deck, still absorbing the events of the past cycles. Vera's eyes reflected the streaking stars outside as she spoke. "We've done so much already, but I feel like this is just the beginning." "You've come a long way," he said quietly. "But the best part isn't what you've done, it's what you'll do next. The galaxy underestimates you because it doesn't understand your strengths. That will change. And they will never call you useless again." She and Jerk exchanged determined glances. The other Clithians prepared themselves as Kane briefed them on the rescue operation. "We will approach slowly," he instructed. "You will guide us through the debris. Trust your instincts and each other." The Clithians immediately took the lead, using their heightened senses to anticipate shifts in gravitational fields and the trajectory of larger meteors. Vera pointed out safe paths through the chaos, while Jerk coordinated the timing and movement of the freighter's evacuation pods. Kane watched from the bridge, impressed by their precision. The Clithians moved as one, each member complementing the others. Small mistakes were corrected instinctively, and minor obstacles were overcome with creativity and teamwork. Within minutes, the freighter had been guided to safety, and the crew was unharmed. The human freighter captain, initially skeptical about working with Clithians, looked on in astonishment. "I've never seen anything like this," he said. They're incredible." After the operation, Kane gathered the Clithians. "Do you see what you've done?" he asked. "You've saved lives, used your skills, and demonstrated that your species has value. You are not useless. You are extraordinary. But now we want to be part of something greater. We want to show the galaxy who we really are. With courage, teamwork, and determination, you can achieve anything." Back aboard the Ardent Horizon, Vera and Jerk reflected on how far they had come. The journey had begun with fear, abandonment, and despair. They had faced near death in the cold of space and skepticism from the galaxy. They had learned to trust themselves and each other, discovering hidden talents and intelligence that others could not see. Vera realized something important. Their survival was not just about life, it was about purpose. Their species had a role to play in the galaxy, and they were ready to embrace it. Kane spent time mentoring them further, introducing strategic thinking, negotiation skills, and leadership exercises. Vera showed remarkable aptitude for diplomacy, learning to assess alien motives and communicate effectively across cultural boundaries. Jerk excelled in technical leadership, often advising on ship systems, tactical operations, and environmental control strategies. The Clithians began participating in missions alongside human crews. They provided unique insights that humans could not perceive, their natural sensitivity to energy flows, spatial patterns, and subtle environmental cues proving critical in exploration and rescue operations. Their reputation grew with every successful mission. One day, the Ardent Horizon received a formal invitation from the Galactic Council. Kane, Vera, and Jerk attended the meeting, where the Council officially recognized the Clithians as a valuable species worthy of inclusion in interstellar affairs. The recognition was symbolic but powerful, a formal acknowledgement that the Clithians had risen from abandonment to respect. Vera addressed the Council, her voice steady and confident. "We were once abandoned. We were called useless. But through guidance, courage, and determination, we have learned to survive, adapt, and thrive. We are ready to contribute to the galaxy, to work alongside humans and other species, and to prove that every life has value." Applause followed her words, marking a moment that would be remembered as the Clithians' emergence into recognition. After the council meeting, Kane and the Clithians returned to the ardent horizon. Vera stood at the observation deck, gazing at the vastness of space. She thought about the colony ship that had been abandoned, the fear and despair they had endured, and the journey that had brought them here. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not just for herself, but for her entire species. Jerk joined her. "We've come so far," he said quietly, "and I think this is just the start. We've survived abandonment, learned new skills, and earned respect. But now we need to keep moving forward. We have a place in the galaxy, and we need to claim it fully. The galaxy will take notice, and your species will have a future brighter than anyone imagined." The journey ahead remained uncertain. There would be challenges, conflicts, and obstacles, but Vera understood that the Clithians had learned something invaluable. Strength was not measured by size, power, or recognition. True strength came from resilience, intelligence, courage, and the willingness to seize opportunities when they arose. For the first time, Vera felt hope not just for survival, but for achievement. The Clithians had been abandoned, underestimated, and left to die, but they had been given a chance, and they had risen to it. They would continue to grow, explore, and prove themselves across the stars. And as the ardent horizon accelerated through the endless black of space, streaked with distant lights and the glow of distant worlds, Vera whispered softly to herself, "We are not useless. We are alive. We are strong, and the galaxy will remember us." Kane, watching the young Clithian leaders, knew that their species would never be underestimated again. Humanity had given them a chance, but it was their courage, intelligence, and resilience that would shape their destiny. The Clithians had risen from abandonment to respect, from fear to confidence, from obscurity to recognition. And in doing so, they had not only secured their own future, they had set an example for the galaxy, proving that no species should ever be dismissed as useless. With Vera and Jerk at the forefront, guided by Kane's mentorship, the Clithians looked toward the future with determination and hope. Their journey was far from over, but the first chapter of their legacy had been written, a story of survival, growth, and triumph against impossible odds. And in the silence of space, amid the streaking stars and endless possibilities, one truth became undeniable. Humanity had the power to see potential where others saw failure, and in doing so could change the fate of an entire species. The Clithians were no longer abandoned. They were no longer dismissed. They were alive, capable, and ready to shape the galaxy alongside humans. And as the ardent horizon sailed onward, carrying them to new worlds and new challenges, the spark of hope that Kane had ignited now burned brighter than ever, illuminating a future where no being would ever be called useless again.